Well, welcome into Running It Straight here for your Wednesday, 16th of August, 3 minutes past 2. And a big shout out to everyone watching live on YouTube. You can drop a comment there, we'll pick that up, or you can text through on 8833. Coming up between now and 3 o'clock, we're going to talk a little bit about the game on the weekend. Just gone, the Warriors getting the win over the West Tigers, a little bit scrappy. So Kemp and I chew the fat on that one, as well as some of the stories around the NRL at the moment. We're going to chat with Stacey Jones around about 2:15. A lot of talk around the Seagulls Warriors game on Friday night at Daniel Anderson Stadium, but we're going to deep dive with Stacey just into Daniel Anderson, the memories of the great man. Kempy, that sort of sounds like he's passed away, but given that we're honouring him this Friday night, we want to talk with Stacey about those glory days back in the sort of 02 days. You alongside him as well, Kempy, and might get a little bit of oil from Stace if he's willing to share that on radio. And then after
of course you're getting oil.
After 2:30, we'll have a look at this weekend's game against the Seagulls. I think it's one of the Warriors' toughest games on this run home. Kempy, very, very dangerous prospect ahead of them, as well as some of the other games going on around the NRL. And get a few of your texts away as well, 8833, or you can drop, like I said, a comment on the YouTube live. Are you okay? Because you seem to have slowed down your talking a little bit. Are you getting ready to commentate rugby or something? No,
because you're going to have to. You're going to struggle because it's like 10 seconds slower than league.
I actually am. I'm a little bit worried about how I'm going to fill the gaps.
Of the number 8, and the halfback's just picked it up, and he's kicked it, and I've caught it.
Why aren't you doing the commentary? Maybe we swap places. If I get
Sammy, if I get
young
sick,
Rabs. I'll call you in if I get sick. I thought you were actually going to ask me if I'm changing my tune on the grand final, the premiership call I made, but I feel like it might be going slightly the other way. To be fair,
you owned it. You owned it in the end. And like I said, like you've maybe just thrown your line out a little bit too early. I think, seriously, I think the last weekend of the competition round is going to be a fantastic weekend.
Oh, it will be. It really will be.
When you're looking at the competition at the moment, if the results go a little bit skew-if between now and the back end of the season, you don't want to be doing anything on the last round of the NRL.
Nah, and I think it's almost a fait accompli now that the Broncos finished in second. They needed to drop one of these two games. Now they've got the bye, which is a free 2 points. Storm is the last game of the season for which they could drop, but at that point we're already 4 points behind them. So I would say they've almost locked up second spot. The Warriors, if they win on Friday, will lock up a top 4 spot. They could still theoretically finish in fourth if they then drop the next two in the Storm win. And look, the Storm are a scary prospect as well, can be with Ryan Pappenhausen carving up in Queensland Cup on the weekend.
He's just about back. But we knew that. We knew all these what do you call changes would happen, and it'll start to play out. Pappenhausen, and it's the same with Tamati Martin. You know what I mean? Coming back at the right time. All of these things will have an influence on the way that the season's been played. We talked about injuries. Okay, Mitch Barnett's out for the weekend. You got Bunty 4 coming back. You got Sean Johnson with it. We talked about injuries, carrying a little bit of a quad injury. All of these things the cards will fall, Sammy. It's just about how far do they fall out of favour of the Warriors or for the Warriors.
Yeah. Well, James has messaged on YouTube saying, Kempy, any concerns on the Warriors' performance lately? Is it just down to very tough comp with no easy games and night games in New Zealand? And that will lead us into maybe the game on the weekend against the Tigers, Kempy, because once again, it wasn't the most complete performance from the Warriors. I think Andrew Webster even would admit that there were areas of the game they'd like to improve. At what point do you think Warriors fans should just be a little bit worried? I feel like, Kempy, what they're waiting for is for the Warriors to just put 50 points on a team, just to ease the concerns. That's what it feels like at the moment.
Well, I don't think they're going to put 50 points on a team between now and the semis. And that's a great question about the last couple of weeks. You've got to remember they've won 5 in a trot. They're going to go for 6 this weekend. It's the first time or the third time they've only done it in their existence. But what you've got, and it's quite simple, you've got this team that Andrew Webster's taken on board, and they're all playing defining career best football across the board. You talk about their spine, Wade Egan, Sean Johnson, Luke Metcalf, Tamari Martin and Charles Nichol-Klokstad. They're as good a spine as anyone in the competition. Then you add Aidan Whanua-Blake, Toru Harris, Mitch Barnett, Marata Noa-Kore and our mate Ford out on the left edge. None of them have been playing bad for long periods of time. And what you've got is you've got a little bit of a drop in form and a little bit of mental fatigue. And I think it's really important for the Warriors to make sure that they're managing these next 3 weeks to try and get them through that and back to the type of football that they have been playing all year to get them to this stage. So I'm not really that worried. I think Andrew Webster's a very smart coach. You know, it's really interesting talking to Daniel Anderson. You can tune into breakfast tomorrow morning because we've got Ando on, and he's going to talk about Andrew Webster as a coach. Now they're very similar. You know, they don't become bad coaches overnight. I think Andrew Webster at the moment has enough experience to get them back up for finals football. It's just whether or not he can get them up enough, you know, to be performing like they have been doing all year.
So I want to ask you what you sort of think over the last couple of games just has been a little bit off for the Warriors, and it ties into a question from Maria, who's messaged on YouTube saying, Kempy, the left edge with Ford, Metcalf, Pompey have been leaking a few tries over the past few weeks. How do you stiffen up that edge with the finals around the corner and teams no doubt targeting that edge? So what sort of you've been noticing, what's been a little bit off for the Warriors over the last couple of weeks, and how do you fix some of those?
Well, defensively, you got to take a few things into account here. All right, let's take the weekend. You lose Wade Egan. You've got a new fullback in Tane Toapiki out there on the left edge, and then you've got a change to the structure defensively in the middle. All right, edges generally get caught because the middles get strained. All right, so it's not general, you know, like last year and the year before where they just went to the edge and they score tries at will.
Yeah.
Now, this year, this team's so resilient in and around the defence in the middle that on the weekend they got caught in the middle. They had to jam their defenders back into the middle of the park. Hence, they pick it up a dummy half and Laurie gets on the outside. The big second row finds a pass back on the inside and they make a break. So I wouldn't. It's not something that you can't fix, and it's not something that's, you know, there for good. They'll tidy that part up. The problem that you have is that when you're playing teams and you're not, and this is to answer your question about what do you think needs to change, when you're not confidently demanding respect in the middle of the park, you are going to struggle. And I've been saying this for weeks. The Warriors are at their best when they dominate defensively and offensively in the middle of the park. You've got to say on the weekend, Tohu Harrison, Aidan Fanua-Blake, two best players on the pitch.
Yeah.
Sean Johnson picking the right spots after being able to go behind them. But defensively, they were fragile. Yeah, but you can give them a little bit of leeway on that because you've lost Egan, you've got Toapiki at the back who's calling those defensive shots. And I actually thought that Tane, under the circumstances, coming in this late in the season, did a really good job for a young kid. So, again, like you got to remember, we've got the wins, and now what we need to do is make sure we capitalise on that going in. If we do finish in the top four, and like you said, probably is it 3, is it 4? I think that's going to make a hell of a difference. Ready to go. You know, we don't want to be sort of scratching. And I'll talk to you about it again, Sammy. We don't want to be scratching injuries. You know, how bad is Sean's thigh? Now, if he can't kick goals, what does the next 3 weeks look like with that strain? If it is a strain in the quad or the abductor, wherever it is. Well, Wade Egan's fragility in and around HIA. You know, you got Mitch Barnett out this week. I'm assuming with that neck injury or a knee injury or whatever, you just don't know. You've just got to be, making sure that we're getting everyone back on board when the September weekends start.
And now the other big question that everyone's asking, or I guess suggesting at the moment, tossing up in various social media pages and online and in our text machine, Kempy, is to Mighty Martin, if he comes back, does he go straight back in?
No, of course he doesn't. He's been out for too long. He needs the same you just have to look, Peppenhausen, does he go straight back in? No. He needs a couple of games under his belt. And you can't just say, start blaming everything on Luke Metcalf. It is not Luke Metcalf, is not the issue. All right? So I'm pretty sure the positions in that team between 1 and 17 are going to be selected on what's best for the team, not what's best to change an individual into the team. And I got to say, Luke Metcalf, mate, he ain't going that bad.
No, there's been, I think, a couple of instances over the last few weeks where maybe the decision making's off, but not like you, probably to your point, not game costing, or there's certainly other things happening on the field that you'd argue are more important.
So now we're going to drop players because we're winning games.
Well, it is funny how quickly the sort of the tide has turned around
It's
for Warriors fans.
expectation, isn't it?
Well, exactly.
It's
it is.
expectation.
It's expecting. That's what I'm saying, Kemp. I feel like Warriors fans are expecting the team to put 50 points on a team to show us that they're this big finals team. It feels like that's what people want.
Coaching's is a funny beast, because when you're looking at games and you're looking at generally in momentum swings, Sammy, and you can see this because you're calling it every game. You can call back-to-back sets and you can see a momentum swing. Coaching football teams is the same. They ebb and flow, all right? And we were flowing. No one wanted to talk about dropping people. 2 weeks ago, we had Luke Metcalf on, and everyone's just praising him from the top of the hills. And then all of a sudden, it's he needs to get out there. We need to put another player back into a spot. Well, no, it's a neb at the moment. They've got a little bit of form, and I've explained that across the board. Haven't got 17 players playing out of their skin, and it's going to happen. So this is where the coaching starts, and I'm backing Andrew Webster. I've backed him all year. So I'm backing him to get them back up and ready for the semis.
Yeah, big game this Friday night against Manly. We will talk about that after 2:30. But we've got to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to catch up with assistant coach at the Warriors and legend, of course, Stacey Jones, about Daniel Anderson and what he means to the Warriors, what he meant to Stacey, both during his playing career and also post as well. If you've got any questions, you can text them through on 8833, or you can jump on our YouTube channel and drop a comment in there. But we'll take a short break. Come back with Stacey after this. We're running it straight here on SENZ, 19 minutes away from 90 minutes past 2. Sorry, we're just trying to get Warriors assistant coach Stacey Jones up on the line. When we do get him, Kempy, something I'm keen to ask him about is, you talk a lot about the similarities from this team to 2002, 2003, and it even sort of goes a bit further back than that. I was just doing a little bit of reading about at the end of 2000, the Warriors in a position where they were bankrupt, they were sold for the second time. He was the first signing by the new franchise, Stacey. Then, Eric Watson comes in, and then, Ando's on board, and within a couple of years, things start to turn around. We make a grand final 2002, and it's sort of, in a way, when you look at the Warriors over the last 3 years, the COVID stuff, the turmoil, players leaving, etc., and I guess the position we were in to sort of now, it's almost scary how similar that all is.
Yeah, and it is. It is really scary, actually, when you're looking at it. Like the writing was on the wall for the Warriors in 1999 and in 2000, and then all of a sudden, I think I was the third signing at that club. I think they signed Ando and the girl that was on reception, and then I was third.
Wow.
Well, we never even had a team, and this is the irony of that, taking them to the 8 that year. The top 8 is that we actually didn't have pre-season. We got blokes back in. Stace was the first signing. Everything fell on the back of that, and then all of a sudden, over the next 3 years, we just went on this hell of a run. And the similarities between the coaching of Webby and just the transparency that's why I've always said to you, like, he reminds me of Daniel Anderson.
Yeah,
and when you're listening to the players in the background talking about what is it that is so good about this club, the thing that resonates with me is that they say it's just such an enjoyable environment to be around, and when you listen to Daniel Anderson talk about those days back then, he'll talk about that, like the things that are memorable is the amount of times we got together around a sausage sizzle or Chinese, and just talking and having fun, and players, the other part of that too is being coached well, which they'd never been coached like that before. So it was a really good time to take them on that run. It's pretty similar to what they've done this year, and the other part of that is how people are feeling off the paddock. So you've got fans now, sold out again. Sign went up, sold out last night again. I tell you now, you ain't going to get a ticket if they come home after the semis and play a game here in New Zealand. If they do that, it's just going to be absolutely unbelievable as far as trying to get one and who can actually have one. If you've got one already as a season ticket holder, they'll be like hotcakes.
Yeah, and that you mentioning. Ando talking about, having the sausage sizzles and that. I know Webby, when he came in, sort of implemented a team, like a club lunch once a week, and that's everyone at the club. So, the receptionists, the marketing team, that, everyone comes together, has lunch, which I think is an awesome sort of touch, especially to come from the coach as well, to try and bring everyone together. I did want to talk a lot to, and we're just trying to get to Stacey at the moment. I think he's dialing through now. I did want to talk to him a lot about Daniel Anderson, given that this weekend we are celebrating Daniel Anderson. Of course, the stadium name change to Daniel Anderson Stadium, Kemp, and that's great that Go Media Stadium has allowed that. And also Old Boys Day as well. So a lot of the old boys are going to be in town. They're rocking the vintage jerseys too. So it's going to be a great occasion. And I think we've got Stace on the line now. Welcome in, Stace.
Hey guys, how you going?
Mate, we're doing very, very well. Just reminiscing a little bit, actually, on Daniel Anderson, because, of course, we're celebrating him this weekend, and it's great what the Warriors are doing and changing the name of the stadium and the ticket sales, donations going to the Daniel Anderson Foundation. Mate, I guess just right off the bat, a couple of, I guess, early memories for you of Daniel Anderson and how much he influenced your career.
Yeah, he had a big influence. Came at a time when I still didn't quite understand the game. And really, I felt he took my game to another level of getting a grip on it and really understanding of a halfback's role and all of that. But the biggest thing, Daniel brought to the Warriors, I thought, was his ability to instill fundamentals to the team. And I know when Kemp would sort of vouch for this, catch, pass, and tackle technique, basic tackle technique is what he hammered, and along with Kemp, they, those two really delivered a strong message of, if you don't have the fundamentals right, then, you're not going to have the ability to play some footy.
Was it sort of a good cop, bad cop situation, Stace? I imagine Kemp was the softie.
He had a balance. They both had a balance, and Ando, when he first turned up, Kemp, there was no resources we had. We had a few footies, and that's basically all we had. Didn't have sort of tackle shields or anything like that. We were well and truly under-resourced, but we used what we used, and they, really sort of made a new dimension on how to do things, with the basic stuff. And I just remember just up and down the field, catch, pass, and it became boring, but it became effective.
Yeah, and you talk about those days, Stacey. I just take my hat off to the club this week. We've got Ando on the show tomorrow morning, just to celebrate the naming rights for this weekend's game against Manly. But you talk about those days, and just the camaraderie and the friendship, and Sam was just saying, introducing a whole of club lunch every week. It's pretty similar to back in those days, wasn't it, where we all just stay together.
Yeah, it is great. Every captain's run. We have the old boys turn up as many as they like, and as can come, and we have a barbecue. But then, early in the week we have a club sit-down lunch, and it's great. Everyone from the office staff, if there's sponsors hanging around or just people turning up, we sit down and all have a feed together, which just makes the group much more tighter and the culture very good, which is showing what's happening on the footy field.
Mate, when you're reflecting on your own coaching career so far to date, do you think back to those days when Ando was coaching you, or look at those and go, I picked up some really good techniques that I can transfer today?
No, 100%. I'll tell you what Ando was really good at, Kempy, and you were the same. I thought, really good at, when you're playing against a team that, you should beat. He instilled a philosophy of, hey boys, these guys aren't as bad as what you think they are. They're a really good team, and we've got to be on our game here. And when we're playing a team that we weren't expected to beat, he'd give you that confidence to say, hey boys, this team ain't as cracked up as what they are. And I know that if you play to your ability, we won't have a problem. So he was good at that sort of psychology for the group that made you go out on the field knowing, okay, I've got to be on my game here, but also the other side where he gave you confidence going on the field when you're playing against a team that, were probably superior than your team.
One thing I think is really cool, Stace, is you've sort of been a part of these two eras that a lot of people are drawing those similarities between the current group and sort of that group of 0203 and Webster and Daniel Anderson. So, before Daniel came in, the club, sold at the end of 2000 with bankruptcy, new owners, new people coming in. I don't know if you'd sort of say turmoil, but definitely in a very low position. And then if you look at the current, where the club is now, 3 very, very tough years with COVID, down the bottom of the ladder, and now turning it around. And you were involved, back in 02 as a player. Now you're involved in as assistant coach. Just talk to us, I guess, a little bit about what those similarities are between, the two teams, Andrew Webster and Daniel Anderson, because it does seem very, very similar.
Yeah, it's a hard one. Definitely similarities between Webby and Ando. Like Webby came from an assistant coach's role, and same as Ando. Not coming with a profile. Ando didn't come with a profile when I first saw him. I'd never seen him before. He was in the gym with a t-shirt and beach shorts and jandals. Playing with the basketball. I said, "Who's this guy just turned up?" And that's Webby as well. Webby's laid back. Not a profile on him, but certainly now his profile's gone through the roof, and that's what happened with Ando. So, as far as the team goes, I'm not too sure. Like, the game's changed, as the way it is. We've got different dynamics and what the team we had back then compared to the team today. But as far as where the team came from, like in the 2000 to gradually going through, you can say similar story, because what happened the last 3 years for the club, we've been in a very tough place, and where we are at the moment as far as the pathways for our juniors, we've got 3 teams coming next year, and it's heading in the right direction, and getting back to some normality where the club should be.
Where do you think the club is at the moment? It's a big Friday night. It's Daniel's got his name all over the stadium. You've got the old boys there. Stace, where do you think the team is at in understanding what a special occasion this actually is?
We briefly spoke about it this morning. and giving a picture of what Daniel brought to the club and that. But we know that we just got to do our job. All the players got to do their job, and things will happen. So we can't let the emotion of the occasion get to us. We know it's going to be a massive occasion, and what the club's doing for Ando is brilliant, But at the end of the day, the boys will go out there and do their job, and we get a result that we're all after. It certainly will make for a really good night. Well,
they're not going too bad, Stace. They played all right last week, apart from their kicking game, which was pretty average, Manly, but they've got plenty of talent in their side. You've got a short turnaround yourselves. I think you had your first training session this week. Chance said on breakfast this morning. How are we looking? You've lost a couple of players. Mitch Barnett especially is going to be a big loss. Are we looking okay for the week, for Friday night?
Yeah, we should be okay. Big loss, Mitch Barnett. Got a nasty cut on his leg, so. But he was probably due for a rest in hindsight. It's probably a good thing that he has a week off, especially leading into what's probably coming down further down the track. So trained really well today. Captain's run tomorrow. But yeah, we know where we're at. We know what we've got to fix up. We haven't been at our best for the last sort of 2 or 3 weeks, but certainly know the areas that we need to improve on. If we're going to get better.
Stace, just talking there about Mitch Barnett and maybe him needing a rest, like I guess just more generally, we're 24, 25 rounds into the NRL season. We know how long and how tough it is. Do you feel like the boys are still sort of have a lot left in the tank, or does it feel like maybe there is an opportunity? Maybe, I know it's been talked about a little bit, to maybe give guys a week or two off if needed.
Yeah, look, if someone's carrying a niggling injury, hopefully we're going to be in a position where you can give a player a week off. I remember, Kemp, you remember back in 2002 when you guys rested a whole heap of us leading into the finals, and it paid off, especially for the first playoff game we had. But you got to be a little bit careful too with how you go about things. You don't want to, you got to make sure that your combinations working and all of that. So, but if certainly a player needs a rest, I'm sure Webby will look at it.
Well, we're riding you home on Friday night, Stacey. It's a massive night, especially for our mate Ando. Like I said, we've got him on breakfast tomorrow morning. We're talking to Campo as well, and Ivan Cleary is coming back on Friday morning. So it's a big week of old boys. Mate, we wish you all the best on Friday night. And Sam's just got one more question for you.
Actually, one's just come through here. It's actually a bit of a left field one for you, Stace. It comes from Steve, who wants us to ask you what your favourite jersey is, because I know on Friday night we're going back to the old
4 million of them.
Heritage jersey. I don't know if it's something you think too hard about, Stace, but do you have a favourite Warriors jersey from over the years?
I can't go past the O2 jersey, really. For me, just, when teams playing as good as footy as what we were then, that one always sticks out. So for me, that's the one. But hey, what a great week that everyone's doing. You got all those guys going on your show and that. So yeah, hopefully can be a great night for Ando.
No, it's going to be fantastic. Yeah, going to be fantastic. Stace, really appreciate you jumping on, mate, and good luck for Friday.
Thanks, boys. Cheers,
Stace.
Yeah, Stacey Jones here, Warriors assistant coach. Some awesome memories and thoughts of Daniel Anderson, Kempy, and just some of those similarities. It does feel very, very similar in what Andrew Webster's also brought to the club as well. We're going to talk a bit about the Manly game after the news. We're also going to pick out a winner from our Warriors voicemail. We've got lots of prizes to give away on that, and we're going to find out who our latest winner is. So stick with us here. We'll take some news, sport and weather. Be back after that. 35 minutes after 2 or 25 away from 3, whichever way you want to say it. Here on SENZ running it straight. Semi and Kemp, great to catch up with Stacey there and share some awesome memories back in the day of how he remembers Daniel Anderson, and great to remember him.
Mate, we had nothing.
Friday.
Like, you forget about that. We actually had nothing.
No. And one thing as well, Kempy, without getting too lovey-dovey here towards you, because I know that'll come back to bite me. But a lot of people forget that you were part of that as well, Kempy. You know, like a lot of people talk about Ando when they talk about 2002, but it was a tandem with yourself as well. And you know, obviously things got a bit tougher a couple of years later. But you know, 2002, 2003, one of the best Warriors teams we've ever had. You right at the helm there with Ando, and I love, you know, the old school videos and images of you and Ando up in the box. And
yeah, we were tight.
He was often the more reserved one. You were the one standing up and
we were
throwing the walkie-talkie.
Well, we were very similar in that, you know, you'd be watching the game and I remember there'd be times where he'd be coaching and I'd go, mate, let's put this on. And he'd look at me and he'd go, okay, get this out there and do this right now. And he'd say the same thing to me. He'd go, man, I think we need to go there. And I'd look at him and I'd go, yeah, let's do that. You know, and it was actually like, it was like you're playing a PlayStation game, you know, because you're moving people around, and he was very, very good at it. You know, like what Stace touched on there is that even though people think that it was, you know, we came in and we did something really stunning as far as coaching goes, when I left New Zealand, my dad was my coach. So he coached a bunch of kids and he was very good at it. But no one in New Zealand coached us fundamentals. So when we took the talent and we gave them the basics, they went through the roof. Because there were two things that teams used to say about us. One, you're going to drop the ball all the time. Okay, and two, you're going to get really tired and we're going to run over the top of you in the last 20 minutes. And that was the Warriors. That's what they always said. So we just went, well, let's get fit. That was my job, to get them fit. And the second thing is, let's make sure they don't drop the ball. And we just used to drill them. Like, you know, you talk about players, they run around with contraptions. Yeah. I made this contraption. It was a curl. So you know, you put this steel thing on. It's like when you're doing curls, bicep curls. Yeah. And blokes would know this. You put the steel contraption on, and you fold your arms down it, and it just keeps your biceps in a real workable position. Sure. So I put this thing together, and then I tied a bungee around it, put it around your neck, and tied it to your hands, because we had this thing about keeping your hands above your waist for two reasons. One for defence and one for attack. So you receive the ball quicker. And the second thing is, when you're tackling, it's always best to have your hands above your waist because you can move quicker towards the target. So if you got caught with your hands down, you had to train in this contraption. I'll never forget Johnny Carlaw running around training with it and just didn't know what to do. Yeah. And we were just like, mate, if you don't want to wear that contraption, then get your bloody hands up above your waist.
Well, surely he had a nickname like Kempy's Crackers.
No, we'd come up with all sorts of ideas back in those days. But the other thing, and Ando will touch on this, mate, there was only 6 of us staff. Like there's a cast of thousands these days. Yeah. So in some way, it was a lot better because you didn't have to go through so many people.
Yeah, it wasn't so muddied. Yeah.
And of course, me and him were like, you know, we were so close and on the pulse with what we wanted to do. And Stace was a big part of that. I remember I spent plenty of time with Stace because I was also the kicking coach. And I remember them saying to me that Stace couldn't kick, and I did some video on him, and I'm like, mate, he can kick. You know, we just got to adjust a few things. You know what I mean? Stace, and I'll say this to anyone, Stacey Jones was one of the hardest trainers ever. Like, he was one of the fittest blokes on the fittest blokes on the football field and training paddock. But when you had to do a drill, he would drill it. You know what I mean? So we do kicking practice, and I'd just throw him ball after ball after ball, and he'd just hit it and he'd go, yep, no, I feel good.
I want to ask you a few more questions about Ando, Kemby, but we've got to get to our Warriors voicemail. It's 0800 37 GO Warriors. You just ring up, tell us why you're the Warriors one big fan, and you could win all sorts of prizes, which we've got up for grabs. Now, a winner today is going to take home 2 tickets to the Warriors home, the One New Zealand home base at the Warriors home game on, I think, this weekend, and that is 2 tickets, and I think it's all paid for drinks and hospitality and everything, Kempi, so it's a fantastic package. Well, you didn't ring up. I'm still waiting for you to ring up. I
How
feel
do you
like
know
I've heard a
that's not
couple.
me?
Well,
How do
I
you
feel
know-
like I've heard a couple that may be your voice. Anyway, we've picked out a couple.
Is there
from,
one that sounds like The Rock?
We've picked out a couple from the last couple of weeks, Minnie Mouse actually, and we've picked a couple from the last few weeks, and we've sort of had a listen to them all. Kempy's actually picked our winner this week, so we've got a couple of them on the line. But first, we'll play out the winner, and then we'll bring it up. So here is our winning voicemail this week.
In the realm of fervent Auckland Warriors supporters, I proudly stand as the embodiment of unwavering loyalty and boundless passion. Within my heart, an unquenchable flame burns, fueling my unwavering dedication as the one true Auckland Warriors' biggest fan. With each passing game, I'm immersed in a sea of emotion, eagerly cheering on my beloved team through every triumph and standing tall in the face of adversity. The history, the players, the defining moments. I possess an encyclopedic knowledge of all things Warriors. Rain or shine, victory or defeat, I'm a constant presence, draped in the team's colours, exuding an unyielding spirit. My unwavering support radiates, captivating others and instilling in them the same fervour that courses through my veins. To be a true fan means to be a beacon of unwavering loyalty, an ambassador of undying devotion. As the one Auckland Warriors' biggest fan, I'm honoured to embrace this role, and with each passing day, my passion for the team only grows stronger. Go the Warriors!
There it is. That's our winner for our Warriors voicemail. 2 tickets to the One New Zealand home base at the Warriors home game. It's Lewis. He's on the line now. Lewis, you're a poet.
Oh
You
my
know
God, I can't. I can't believe that. I sat there and wrote that. I taught the competition. I wrote it out after about 20 minutes, and then hearing it now, and then hearing myself say it, I'm like, oh my God.
Mate, that was so, Lewis.
was awesome,
that
mate.
was so good. What has it been like for you this year, Lewis? You know, going down there, seeing the boys after the last couple of years, spending all that COVID period in Australia. You must be happy.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, no, my passion for the Warriors actually comes to my uncle in Wellington, Jeff. So shout out to him. I've always sort of followed in his footsteps, watching the game, and yeah, it's been good. I've actually enjoyed watching the last few games.
Mates.
And to win those tickets, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, man, it's a great spot to watch the game as well. And like I said, all the hospitality, so you're going to be well looked after. You said you had an encyclopedic knowledge, mate. How deep does that go? Like, can you name us the number 13, round 24, 2005?
No, don't ask me anything now. I'm sort of like, I'm in a bit of shock. I probably couldn't tell you who's in the team at the moment.
Yeah.
Bloody hell.
Nah.
I can, Simon Mannering.
Oh, yeah. Well, back in 2000, it probably was actually. Yeah, you probably are right. Or was he playing centre back then, Kempy?
Geez.
No, 2003.
Okay.
4.
I'm glad that's not a competition.
Yeah. Hey, Lewis, well done, mate. Congratulations. We will
Awesome.
we'll keep you on the line. The boys will take your details. We'll get that
Well
prize
done,
out to
mate.
you. And look,
Primo.
if you're listening and you want to get involved, 0800 37 Go Warriors. Leave us a voicemail. Tell us why the one big Warriors one big fan. You win yourself a nice little prize pack. You're going to the draw to win some pretty big, epic prizes as well. That trip over to Australia. So there you go, Lewis winning it for this week. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I've got a couple of questions I did want to ask Kempy about Daniel Anderson. We'll have a little quick preview of the Seagulls this weekend as well. Your text on 8833 as well as your YouTube comments. Stay with us. Running it straight here on SENZ, we're talking a lot about Daniel Anderson, given what the Warriors are dedicating this Friday night game against Manly to. It is the Daniel Anderson Foundation. They're naming the stadium after him, and as well as $5 from every ticket sales going towards that foundation. And I know you want to talk about the Manly game, Kempy, but I did want to ask you a couple of questions I didn't get to after 2:30. How did you first come across Ando? I imagine he was the one who pulled you into the coaching ranks.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. So it was Ridgie that...
It's an arranged marriage.
Yeah, mate. So Ridgie gave me a call. I was at the Melbourne Cup, actually, and I was heading to Newcastle with an opportunity to go into the coaching structure in Newcastle. Because you remember I came out of Wakefield, I was coaching Super League.
Mm-hmm.
And Ridgie basically was putting the team together because it was Ridgie that hired Daniel. And he said to me, mate, do you want to coach the Warriors? That was basically how the conversation went. I was on the Terps. I was 6 deep in 6 beers deep over in the Melbourne Cup. And I said, mate, I'm at the Melbourne Cup. I'll come back and I'll talk to you on Tuesday. So Tuesday the following week. And I walked in on the Tuesday the following week and we had a chat, me and him. And he said, go out there into the gym and tell me what you think. And I walked out there and been in a number of them over the years, and I said, it doesn't really look like it's had a lot of work. We'll change that around and we'll do some stuff in there. And he said, we'll go. The coach, he's in that back office back there. He was the only bloke who was hired. He says, he's in the back office in there. You can convince him, then you'll get the job.
Because am I right in saying that he
didn't want me?
He didn't want you.
No, Ando didn't want me at all. Ando wanted, which is fair enough because I would be the same. If I was head coach, I want my guys. And we did have 4 other guys from Australia that would work for us while we were in Aussie. Mm-hmm. They would sort of, especially game day, they would help out because we only had 6 guys in the club doing it. So I go and say, I don't know. Like, when Stacey's in board shorts, jandals and a t-shirt, who's this guy? I'd never seen Daniel Anderson in my life, and the conversation in a nutshell goes like, I walked in, we're the same age. I could tell he was not happy. And I get this thing when people aren't happy or they're angry, I get a giggle. I start to giggle. And, it's like, okay, I start to smile, because it's like you're getting ready for a fight, and I'm sort of going like this again. But in my head, I'm going, man, he's not happy. Like that. And he goes, talking, and he goes, well, talking, tell us a bit about yourself. And then he goes, well, why would I hire you? And I knew that sort of question was coming. And I said, well, I played 25 tests for my country. I've played NRL, played Super League. I've been 5'8" for a big part of that career. And I talk to coaches, and I probably know quite a lot of what coaches are thinking. By the way, I've just kept Wakefield up in the Super League, so I'm basically on my way, and I want to learn in the NRL, and I want to learn off you, and that was it. And he
shaking away you go,
and he just went, yeah, mate, this guy wants to work. You know what I mean? And I'll tell you now, if you want to be a coach, you get ready to work. Like you go to. I was, you think we're starting breakfast here early. I was doing the same thing back then. I was up at 5 o'clock. I was heading into work. We'd work back in those days, mate. You didn't have iPhones. Remember those? We had those little Nokia bricks that were text bricks. And then you had shuttle videos so you didn't have computer systems that you just tapped in and they all popped up. Mate, I captured everything on a shuttle and watched and put scores on them and then presented them to the players. And you went home at 6, 7 o'clock at night. So that's how me and Ando hooked up in that coaching realms. But we got on like a house on fire. And that good cop, bad cop thing, the asked Stace? It was. He was a bad cop. Mm-hmm. I was a good cop.
Yeah, you took the players aside and just,
Mate, because he'll say this when you listen to the interview with Daniel Anderson, because he actually lets out some really, really good memories. And he'd admit back in those days he's a bit harsh. But, mate, in the good cop role, I'd have to pick players up off the floor. I mean, I have to physically lift them back up and get them ready to go, but he had them at the right spot, and we knew this, had him at the right spot that if I could just get him back to that level. Yeah,
message received.
They would go, mate. And I remember one game at Penrith, and you watch this, if you go back and watch this game at Penrith, we're down like 24-6 at half time. And we come back and win that game. Mate, that was one of the toughest games of getting the players to switch back on after getting absolutely torn apart by the coach. So, mate, it's great talking to him now because you're talking 50-year-olds as opposed to 34-year-olds. You know, but like, you know.
You talking to me? We've got to take a break.
But like biting my lip all the time.
We've gone well over time. We've got to take a break. When we come back, we'll just have a really, really quick look at the Warriors-Manly game on Friday night. Stay with us. It's been a great show running it straight this Wednesday afternoon, talking about Daniel Anderson, talking with Stacey Jones as well, getting Kempy's memories. But we do have a game on Friday night. Manly v the Warriors at Daniel Anderson Stadium here in Auckland. 8 p.m. kickoff live commentary here on SENZ. Kempy, where is the game won and lost on Friday night? What's your prediction?
Middle of the park. I think the game's going to be played through there. I'm expecting it to be nice and tight, and the game's going to be lost on whoever's got the worst kicking game. On Friday
two great
night.
kickers as well.
That's exactly right. And I'm expecting Manly to really pick up on that during the week. So look for Daly Cherry Evans and Sean Johnson to have a massive game for both their sides.
12 and under then?
I'm thinking, 12 and under definitely for Manly. I think the Warriors still get him, but I think it's going to be a hell of a lot closer than people are predicting.
40-20 for Daly Cherry Evans? That's probably paying pretty well.
No, I think our wingers are too good for that.
All right. So live commentary, as I said, this Friday night here on SENZ. That is us for another Wednesday. We'll be back next Wednesday. Another bumper show. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all your texts and your comments on YouTube. The Run Home coming up next with Kirsten Beef.